and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this impromptu video today with me, which is an alignment with the current eclipse energies. I'm doing this video actually because I haven't done a live recording on Facebook this month. Well, I really wanted to. It's not that I have a, in a way, an intention to have a certain periodical appearance or anything like that, because I'm truly trusting the flow of spirit and divine guidance. But somehow January was a month that turned out a little differently for me. So I wanted to just, besides everything I've already shared this month, which was quite a lot, it was quite an intense month with so much new coming through. I was doing a lot of inner deepening, inner reflection, and through many new layers of consciousness that wanted to be seated within my awareness and in my embodiment. So I wanted to bring through a very short message of what I'm really tuning into this particular eclipse to be about. As you know, last summer in 2017 we had the royal eclipses, at least that's how spirit called them. So now this current eclipse is about the integration of what was seated at that time, which was about 6 months ago. As you know, eclipses follow a half-year period in alignment. And I think it's very beautiful that this current eclipse occurs in the 11th universal year, particularly in the 11th degree of Leo, the sign of Leo. And so many messages are now coming through about the courage, the strength of perseverance, and the deepening of our initiation through whatever is going on in our lives personally at this time. This means that we are ready, at least those of you who feel ready, to see everything in our life as an initiation point, as a gateway into a new doorway, to open a new dimensional doorway, because I've shared with you before that ascension in truth is not local, it's not linear, it's not an event. Ascension is truly, from a higher perspective, it is a multidimensional process which occurs simultaneously or in parallel in many realities, at once. So therefore, for us to understand dimensional awareness, and that's why we're opening to dimensions, more and more here on this planet and beyond. We have to see that in order for us to step into the galactic frequency and embodiment, we have to master first the template of our learning curve here on Earth. So every experience we've ever held. And the teacher was always the experience for all souls that have participated in these current experiences in this time frame. And you can see time frames in many different facets if you want. You can see around 2,000-year cycles that each procession or each age has, and how it influences us with those seeds that are birthed at that time. We can see the entire age of the 26 something around that 1,000 years, when the whole zodiacal system is in a way moved through and experienced and integrated. But it's particularly important now to see the nature of our own galactic time and our own cycles and evolution ever since our birth and creation. So this time, why is it so important, and how we're feeling this to come into a culmination point, is because we're accessing this dimensional doorway that for many of you, we're not feeling these doorways anymore as well. Now these dimensions can be felt as magical realities somewhere outside of us, but I've shared with you so many times before that these realities are now fully ready to come and be embodied on Earth, to be an experience, a living magical experience, reality here on Earth and our planet. So the 11th degree of a sign, which is Leo, which is in so many cases our own sovereignty, our own fusion, our fierce nature, and that's the totem that Leo offers. And that's why the royal eclipses last year opened a gateway of that initiation. And for many of you, this last year was really intense, and it wasn't easy, and it culminated, or it ended in that way as well, and even began with January, because as you know, until the new astrological year begins, we still kind of feel the frequency, and we're here, you know, especially here in the northern hemisphere, we're addressing forth, or we're integrating everything that is still kind of like a leftover. You know, we're processing all of that, and sometimes it's through awareness, and sometimes through just our body. Sometimes it's just by conscious acknowledgement of what's happening on a planetary level, because there is no us versus the planet. Everything the planet experiences, and even the pain and the suffering, we are experiencing ourselves. So when you become the conscious channel for that, you're starting to feel that flow in your body, whatever it is. So for example, if you have initiation through pain, and I'm going to talk more about that in my February galactic update or ascension update, which is a fusion of this embodiment process, where the feminine and masculine frequencies are ready to embrace each other yet again, and not on the levels that we might superficially know through all the writings and teachings. And, you know, it's like being overflooded with all this frequency and information. This is now the time, you know, that this becomes the embodiment, the roaring truth within all of us that sets all life free. So this precision point, as I'm feeling it, is the point of, in a way, of no return. So especially for those of us who have maybe strong placements, even in our zodiacal charts and our natal charts in Leo. And it's not about that in particular. You know, I have myself Mars and Venus joined in conjunction in those royal degrees in 8th house. And for me, this eclipse, it activates my 8th house, which is a deeper fusion into union and transformation, and leading into transfiguration of the body. So everything that we're experiencing now as a challenge is that activation point that opens a new dimensional space within us. And perhaps we're feeling that as just something new opening up, like something you were ready or able or really wanting to do. Or maybe it's something more esoteric. It doesn't really matter, because dimensions are not something that we might perceive when they start integrating on Earth as something very, you know, fanatically different or extravagant or glamorous. It can be very subtle things, you know, subtle shifts, subtle patterns of frequency that, you know, when they start to enter the embodiment realm, they will be felt as subtle changes within our very nature. So, you know, the Leo is in a way our primary or primal feline nature, and feline nature dates all the way back in, you know, in our galactic ancestry into the constellation of Lyra, because the feline principles have been held in that template and design. So I've talked about the patterns of perfection. I've shared messages about how to move through the galactic archetypes. And all of these archetypes, in truth, when they are purified, they lead us into the synthesis of the cosmic Christ. And I've said before that once we integrate the human, compassionate Christ at heart, it's a gateway into true ascension. And there cannot be any true ascension into, you know, our dimensional realities, which are basically our multidimensional selves, before that is mastered. So at this point, it's this true embracing of the feminine, you know, embracing the masculine, and the masculine embracing the feminine, by embracing first that aspect of us within the self, which means when the masculine fully liberates its own essence and it fully understands what the divine masculine essence is, and then invites it through physical embodiment because awareness has been activated, then it also helps to liberate the feminine. And in equal proportion, the same applies for the feminine principle, because they are always in this interplaying dynamics of infinity flow. So because of that interdependence, they were never able to function separately on the planet or anywhere else in the cosmos. It doesn't exist. So when this separation from, you know, this, what we know as a state of illuminate or divine union, has been created, the fall has occurred. And I've explained before, these falsified archetypes have been implanted, which were basically holographic structures that did not mimic or represent a divine immaculate conception pattern. So now that so much is coming to the surface, and each of us, when we liberate, you know, and connect again the dynamics of the sacred masculine and feminine, we help to bring that pattern back to the planet. We help to bring that resolve back into life. So I wanted to read you just a little bit from this book again, The Heart of the Christos, by Barbara Handclaw, because again, I feel it really relates to our current flow and dynamic of where we are at the precession point and our personal and planetary evolution. Because remember, your evolution is in no way separate from the planetary evolution. So this is one example, a little example of the path of Jeshua and the true meaning of the Christ when it is embraced both in masculine and feminine essences. And you will see through this example, it's a short example and it's very comprehensively important for us at this point in time, and it always has been, but we're now ready to grasp on it with full awareness. So the main design of this false implementation was that divinity is reserved for either the chosen people, or it is a place or the domain of the gods. And we, just by being born on this planet, we're sinners, right? And when we perceive aspects of ourselves that are basically natural, because all creation functions through the sexual principles, which is, you know, when you see a star exploding, becoming a supernova, it's a sexual principle. It's a seeding of life. The seeding of life is a sexual principle in itself, but it's not sexual in the way we relate in the human level sexuality too often. So by this, the biggest lie of separation was told. And we always needed a certain link to that divinity, or we needed a savior or a messiah or a chosen one. And in truth, when divinity embodies, what that means is that of illuminate nature becomes imbued in the flesh, and it has to go through the very same principles, the very same embracing of humanity, because it's showing those that are not yet aware what this is, that how it's done. And this was the principle and the example of that teaching at the time, that humans that needed to integrate for all those 2,000 years. And now it's truly culminating for the first wave of beings who are ready to embrace Christ consciousness within their own selves. It's here, and that is this birth of our own cosmic Christ, the divine child, which is the connection of our human and stellar selves. And maybe for those beings who are here, as I often refer to as volunteer souls, it was more of a vice versa process, as I've shared, when people who are in a way feeling separate from their divine self, they're feeling very rooted on earth, but it's hard for them to comprehend the divinity in themselves. Well, for many of us who are here as volunteer souls in our own way, there's still many of us in different frameworks and different levels of consciousness, but still, it's the very much similar principle that runs through us in our veins. And for us, it was more difficult to embrace the human part, the human aspect. But I've always been shown this, that we can't assist anyone, we can't assist the planet when we still hold the separation. And I've witnessed through all those years such immense separation for people who call themselves light workers, and they were judging those who are less aware, and they're just not aware what's happening. They're so bad, they're ruining the planet. And yes, in many cases, because they're not aware, they're doing damage, more damage sometimes that they're doing good. But when we separate ourselves or put ourselves above, we ourselves can create this false idea that we are the chosen ones, because that is in truth a very falsified context. There is never anyone chosen. There's just someone chosen for the job, for their unique mission. That's all there is. And there is no pedestal there. There is no special divinity or a special superpower. But many times beings have manifested super magical powers to what appeared at that time to people who said, well, that's super magical power, because they thought they didn't have themselves, so it must be something magical. In certain ages that was treated as evil, at certain ages it was worshipped. So, there's been such a difference of belief. So you have to see that there was a play of approaching this through different facets of learning experiences as our learning curve of our humanity. So the experience, embracing the aspect of experiencing creation, is the only healing part that truly does synthesize all the healing you've ever done. Is at the end point, at the precipice point, or at this antithesis point. It just, you come to this climax when you realize it was so easy. It was just really so simple. It's about surrendering to this experience of what it means to be human, whether you consider yourself to be a star person, ET, that being, it doesn't really matter. Someone recently asked me, well, can we have extraterrestrial guides, because some people say it's bad and you can't trust these beings. Well, it's not about where the consciousness who's addressing you or sharing with you or speaking to you or guiding you, it's not about where it's from, because in truth it's all from source. It's about the level of consciousness and whether that conscious presence embodies unity principles or not. So if that guides you from unity, it doesn't matter where it's from, right? It's just that it's coming from a unified perspective. So I was always sharing that with you. It's about that. And I want to say that so many beings have been putting themselves at the position like we're not of earth. Well, we've all had perhaps that thought, and we've seen, if you follow that thought, you were able to see where it leads you. It leads you into feeling isolated, alone, lonely. It makes you feel you don't belong anywhere. It makes you feel you're so different that how can you even survive here, because it just doesn't suit you. And I've now actually heard from many people who once thought that way, that they're now feeling more connected, that because this state of union is being brought into earth, this seed that was planted eons ago is now really starting to become, it's like the soil becomes moist, so it's ready to give life again, to give life to creation. So every part of the roles, or playing whatever we did or whatever our soul aspects played, wasn't about which life who lived, what experiences you've created, and who did what, and who was the perpetrator, who was the victim. It was about seeing that all these pots, right, we're all from the same pot, and just playing the different alternative approaches to the reality, that it is ultimate. It's about discovering the source and bringing it into whatever kind of world of creation we find ourselves in. So that in every world, in every reality, we remember again, wow, and then we share the remembrance with those who are ready, and then it just starts to overflow, and that the life in creation is through that knowing, through that enlightenment, constantly expanding and seeding more of itself and expanding as the universe does. So when we embrace this experience, when we embrace this nature, the feminine and masculine aspects within ourselves are ready to really make love within unity consciousness, so that we don't see separation, not, the inner polarity merges, therefore our external view of everything that has been previously polarized comes together. So this is now this apex point. That's what it is. And it's truly an important time. And if you're feeling a lot of peace and balance at this time, it means you've done the work, you've integrated that, and now it's an apex point for you. And you're just going to move forward and refine the energies and the integration of the ascension descension path, which is a simultaneous flow. So you're going to come at that. So I want to read you this and just offer you this point of higher expansion into what does it truly mean to be so human, to be so surrendered to our human experience, because in each moment to truly be human does not mean now because I'm in connection or I'm divine, right? I'm going to know everything in advance. I'm going to know what's going to happen to me. And then you have to perceive yourself that you're only master of yourself if you're complete awareness of everything that's going to happen. It's not what it is. It's about embracing the aspect that's human through divine trust, that the creative life force flows through you and guides you in each moment of each step of the way, and that by knowing each step of the way, you're already affirming your divinity constantly, instead of trying to control it, or instead of deifying it into this endless abyss of putting ourselves on our own pedestal. So it's not just people who put other people in the pedestal, it's the over-aggrandizement of our own selves, or human egos. Okay, so let's move to the story. So this is about Jeshua, as he calls himself, and the perspective that comes from someone else as they tune into what he's feeling and the consciousness that is present in the body at that time. He thinks there is a point at which he can check out of the situation that was forming as that play at that time, that no single human on earth right now knows all the details to, right? We can all make assumptions, but we have to understand that each part that was played, like it said here, it's very complicated, but everyone has to play its own part, and it's not just about him and his mission, but also how it will be interplayed with all the actors and co-creators at that time, all the players in the part. So he thinks there was a point where he can check out of it, a point at which he can ascend back to his father, which is the spirit. He does not yet know, as he enters the city, that he is to play out a complete karmic experience, the only way to become fully human. He doesn't understand this divine infusion into matter. No one does, as an incarnation has never happened before. So each time you have an incarnation, it hasn't happened before, it's new. And just as you're planning it from the higher self perspective, you're also planning along the way, because it's the unpredictability factor in creation that I've talked about many times before. So he doesn't understand this divine fusion into matter. No one does. It is the first co-creation, a Christogenesis. The knowledge of all beings from master to frog comes from experience. The opportunity to participate in this drama, whether one is Judas or Mary Magdalene or the Christ, right? It is the first time we know divinity in our bodies. Since Christos is fully human, he doesn't really know what is going on and what is going to happen. He has the idea that he can just cut out of this anytime he needs to. He has not yet developed the magical skills well enough to be able to extricate himself. The human involutionary force will overtake him, and he won't be able to escape death. He could have developed magical skill to the point where he could ascend instead of getting stuck on the cross. But at this point in history, the manifested teaching is for him to get caught. People need to entertain the possibility that even a God is fully human. That is the most important factor here. And that is why many Hebrews have concluded that he is not the Messiah. Their Messiah has to be a chosen one, or the elect, who is greater than human. And that was actually this aggrandized, I don't know what it's called, but it's basically this illusion that comes from our own minds. However, the teaching of this time is for as many people as possible to see the total acceptance of humanity is needed before any ascension is truly possible. The Christians deify him and refuse to integrate his humanity, which is what he values the most. And it's such beauty in humanity, in the compassionate human heart. Thus, they idolize Mammon, Rome. Our personal ascensions will not occur until we end separation from our own divinity and all creatures, all life in creation. He ascends later, as we know. Like Enoch and Elijah, he walks with God. And he explicitly says, we can all walk with God, but the thought form that is impressed on humanity for 2,000 years is the cross, symbolizing the full entrance into the earth on the four directions. The form of Christos, which is perfect love, was fully implanted in 0 AD. The ascension, the multidimensional access, will occur when we all integrate the opposite gender of ourselves. There is one person who understands Christos better than he understands himself, which is Mary Magdalene. And Jesus has told his disciples that she is wiser than he. She is the mirror of God, and he has seen her. She has not given the gift he gives, for she cannot. Why? Her gift is not to be accepted yet. All men who become priests for this moment forward are priests of Peter, the one who rejected the woman. Christos loved above all others. A woman cannot gift the world in these times. The second coming will manifest when a woman offers the gift of the vine, which means that the masculine and the feminine Christ has to be in union, and it's not about externalizing it as an event, as in a coming of someone. It's about the inner unfoldment. It's the inner process of this alchemy, that there is this wisdom of the sacred feminine, and it's the knowledge of the sacred masculine, and how this love in unison comes together. So watch my video on the avatars of Illuminate Union for that higher understanding. It's becoming a potentiality, not just a potentiality anymore. It's becoming a reality for so many of you, for so many of us at this time. So this is the eclipse message. Take care of yourself. Truly understand that what we're experiencing, has never happened before. So in truth, no one knows exactly. No one has the answers for other people. We are kind of like going through the experience, but we're seeing it through with courage, with grace of that newly born child of the Christ within all of us. So I am truly wishing you a blessed eclipse experience. Let this full moon sink into your hearts and truly work on activating this threefolded flame and the flame of divine illumined union within yourself. and so carrying that flame as the torch of light for all. Take care with so much love, wisdom, and power as always. I'll talk to you again very soon.